also?
This would be Wednesday, November 5th. We're going to go ahead and finish our Retreivd Reformation. Hi, dear. What's up?
I think somebody dropped the F-bomb on my desk.
Sorry, we'll make sure you don't pick it up.
Oh, no.
That's how today's class starts. Hey, you did, kids. So with our Retreivd Reformation, we're going to go ahead and finish out the rest of that story and get a chance to talk. We got partway through it yesterday when we introduced our main character. And who's our main character in there so far? Jimmy Valentine. And we find out, where does Jimmy Valentine begin our story?
In jail.
In jail. And why is Jimmy Valentine in jail?
For hacking safes.
Hacking safe.
Close. Not hacking, but cracking. This was before we had hacking, just cracking. And so he was a safe cracker, and then he gets out, and then they give him money and clothes and a cigar, because tobacco is important. And then we find out that he's not a horrible person, because what does he do to prove that he's not a horrible person? There you go, gives money to a blind guy. And we had finished at the bottom of that first column, and so we had just gotten done with him going to the cafe with Mike Dolan, and that's where we had got a chance to get to where and find out more about his background and past and what kind of person he is from there. York, did you want to read?
Yeah.
Go for it, dear. It says, we're sorry we couldn't make it sooner. Jimmy?
How much did I read?
I have no idea. So you'll go for a bit till I find a good stopping point.
Sorry we couldn't make it sooner, Jimmy boy, said Mike. But we had that protest when Springfield to buck against, and the governor nearly balked. Feeling all right? Fine, said Jimmy. Got my key? He got his key and went upstairs, unlocking the door of a room at the rear. Everything was just as he had left it. There on the floor was still Ben Price's collar button that had been torn from the eminent detective's shirt band when they had overpowered Jimmy to arrest him. Pulling out from the wall a folding bed, Jimmy slid back a panel on the wall and dragged out a dust-covered suitcase. He opened this and gazed fondly at the finest set of burglar's tools in the East. It was a complete set made of specially tempered steel, the latest designs and drills, punches, braces, and bits, Jimmy's clamps and augers, with 2 or 3 novelties invented by Jimmy himself, in which he took pride. Over $900 they had cost him to have made at
Blank. They don't tell you.
at a place where they make such things for the profession.
And when they say for the profession, what profession are they talking about?
Stealing!
Stealing. Safe cracking. So was Jimmy innocent?
No.
Where's our evidence of Jimmy's not being innocent?
He has no tools.
Yeah. And apparently he walks into a room that he has a key for, knocks on the wall, opens up a secret panel, and is like, hey, my tools. Yes, I'm not so innocent. And so we find out that Jimmy has a bad past. When Mike Dolan, the guy who was talking, I'm going to come to you in a moment, sassy. When Mike Dolan says, sorry we couldn't make it sooner, any idea what he's talking about? What couldn't they make sooner? Shorty?
Getting him out of jail.
Yeah, and they're saying that apparently Jimmy's connected, has friends, mobbed up, and so they were trying to get him out, but apparently they couldn't get him out sooner, so that's why he thought he was going to be out, but he was in there for a long time and stuff like that. Yes.
Okay, so was this O. Henry guy who wrote it
Yes.
really in jail?
Yes.
And he's writing about this Jimmy guy that was in jail?
Yes.
Is his story like
No.
about the Jimmy guy,
No.
or is it just a completely
Just
different?
a random person, just like some people who are guys write stories about guys, but those guys aren't them. It's
Yeah,
just-
wait. So did the O. Henry guy like safe?
No.
Do the safe cracking?
No. Embezzling, where you steal money from the people you work for.
Oh,
did
yeah,
that?
you told us
Yeah,
that.
I know. It hurt me to remember. Ike.
Why does it have a blank after at?
Because what he's saying is that it's his way, the author's way of saying, I know where you could get these things, but I can't tell you because then you'd go and it'd be against the law. If I said, hey, you can find illegal safe cracking tools at Joe's hardware store, go in the back, knock 3 times, ask for, he's like, I can't tell you. So he's just saying that there's a place, but I can't tell you what it is.
Wait.
Yes.
I'm gonna make a connection! Okay, so like, you know how Chloe was like, the guy wrote the story because
Yes.
it was him? It's like some random teacher who I don't even know writes this story about this girl that has superpowers.
Because he used to be a young girl? Yes. Oh, because he's not now, but yes. Not a random. From there, let's keep going and we find out more. We're moving on. Life's off. I know, I feel so sad from there. No one from me. Harper, go for it.
Someone died. Okay.
In half an hour?
In half an hour, Jimmy went downstairs and through the cafe. He was now dressed in tasteful and well-fitting clothes and carried his dusted and clean suitcase in his hand. Got anything on? asked Mike Dolan genuinely. Me, said Jimmy in a puzzled tone. I don't understand. I'm not living in New York. Amalgamated short snap biscuit cracker and frazzled wheat company. This statement delighted Mike to such an extent that Jimmy had to take a seltzer and milk on the spot. He never touched hard drinks.
Pause right there. A couple things I had to get in there. One, when it says, do you guys know what genially means? When it says Mike Dolan asked genially. What's that?
It's like with sarcasm, but like nice sarcasm.
Close. It just means niceness in general. If you're genial, it just means that you're friendly and smiley and stuff like that. Like I genially asked a kid not to lean against their desk when they had to stand. Stuff like that, as opposed to like yelling and beating them. No, I was just saying things that I would do. Then, when Jimmy says he comes downstairs with a big suitcase full of all the tools, and Mike Dolan says, "You got anything going on?" What is Mike asking him?
Cracking safes.
Yeah, you're gonna go out and crack some safes. And Jimmy's like, "What? I don't do that. I'm a salesman for the New York Amalgamated Short Snap Biscuit Cracker and Frazzled Wheat Company." That's his cover story that he comes up with, and that's what makes Mike Dolan start laughing. He's like, "You are so not a cracker salesman. Get it? Cracker salesman?" See, so Mike starts laughing because he's like, "Cracker salesman. That's a good one." And so that's when he starts laughing at him like that. And so that's his little cover story that he goes with. He says he never has hard drinks. What are hard drinks?
Oh, alcohol.
Good job. So alcohol. Instead, he has seltzer and milk. If you don't know what seltzer and milk is, seltzer is bubbly water. It's just like the carbonated water, like Sprite, but without the lemon lime, and then milk, and that's what he has as a drink. Mixed together, and that was like a popular drink. So if you want to feel like a safecracker, like a criminal, go home tonight and then take some Sprite and milk and like mix it together. Like, I'm hardcore, woo! And then you knock that bad boy back. Do it near the sink though, because you're gonna all over the place.
I know how to get seltzer too.
Keep going from there, Harper.
All right. Isn't there a medicine called? A week
A week later.
after the release of Valentine, 1997. Oh, Valentine. 9762.
And what's that number mean?
His
His
jail
jail
number.
Keep
There
going.
was a neat job of safe burglary done in Richmond, Indiana, with no clue to the other. A scant $800 was all that was secured. 2 weeks after that, a patented, improved burglar-proof safe in Logansport was opened like a cheese to the tune of $1,500 currency. Securities and silver untouched. That began to interest the rogue catchers. Then an old-fashioned bank safe in Jefferson City became active and threw out of its crater an eruption of banknotes amounting to $5,000. The losses were now high enough to bring the matter up into Ben Price's class of work. By comparing notes, a remarkable similarity in the methods of burglaries was noticed. Ben Price investigated the scenes of the robberies and was heard to remark, "That's dandy, Jim Valentine's autograph." He resumed business. "Look at that combination knob. Jerked out as easy as pulling up a radish in wet weather. He's got the only clamps that can do it, and look how clean those tumblers were punched out. Jimmy never has to drill but one hole. Yes, I guess I want Mr. Valentine. He'll do his bit next time without any short time or clemency foolishness."
Ben Price. We saw that name earlier. Do you know where we saw that name earlier?
In the story.
In
He was the investigator that caught him and phoned him.
Nicely nicely done. When he first walked into his room, it says Ben Price's like shirt buttons were there on the ground when he first walked in, because apparently Ben Price is the one that arrested him the first time. They got into a struggle and a fight, and so Jimmy Valentine saw the remnants of Ben Price's fight that was there.
She like nails me in the face with the book.
Stab her in the neck. That's how she learns. And so that's who Ben Price is.
No.
From there, sounds like I need to get involved. We have, let's see, when it says the short time or clemency, he says, I guess Mr. Valentine will do his bit next time without short time or clemency. What is he saying there?
Like, it's like pumpkin.
No, but good guess.
He's not.
How did he, Ike?
Without any struggle?
No, good guess also.
Darn it.
Elf?
No, he's not going to be out of jail early.
Nicely done.
Oh.
So this time, once he gets caught, they're not going to be able to get him out on, because apparently he does jobs for the mob and stuff like that. So he's not going to be able to get out early for poor choices.
I was just looking at the video.
I'm well aware of what you're doing there, poor choices. And continuing on from there, Chloe.
My knee hurts.
Okay. Ben Price knew Jimmy's habits. He had learned them while working on the Springfield case. Long jumps, quick getaways, no Confederates, and a taste of good society. These ways had helped Mr. Valentine to become noted as a successful dodger and
Retribution. Do you guys know what retribution is?
Yes.
Yes?
Retribution is like the government and the feds.
Like it's
The policeman.
It's punishment.
Oh, so like justice.
Yes.
Got
Go
it.
ahead.
It was given out that Ben Price had taken up the trail of the elusive cracksman, and other people with burglar-proof safes felt more at ease.
Keep going.
Okay. One afternoon, Jimmy Valentine had his suitcase, climbed out of a mail hack in Elmore, in a little town 5 miles off the road down in the blackjack country of Arkansas. Jimmy, looking like an athletic young senior just home from college, went down to the broad sidewalk toward the hotel. You going?
No.
A young lady crossed the street, passed him at the corner, and entered a door over which the sign said the Elmore Bank. Jimmy Valentine looked into her eyes, forgot what he was, and became another man. She lowered her eyes and colored slightly. Young men of Jimmy's style and looks were scarce in Elmore.
Real quick, why is Jimmy in this town of Elmore in the first place?
To steal.
Yeah,
To
he's
crack
here to
safe.
crack a safe, if you will. And it says that when he sees this girl, he looks into her eyes, forgot what he was, and became another man. Chloe?
He's in love.
Yeah. And so apparently he does the whole humana when he looks at her, because her reaction is, what does she do? She
She colored her. She blushes.
yeah. When he's just like humana, and she's like it's like a giggly thing, and she gets all red and walks in from there. Because apparently Jimmy's a good-looking fella, because it says the young men of his style and looks were scarce in Elmore. I'm guessing it doesn't mean like he's like an Igor, like, rawr, rawr, but the fact that he's a really good-looking guy. She's like, oh, hot dude, how you doing? And so keep going along there. Keep going, Thistle.
A young lady. Oh, I gotta read. Okay. Jimmy collared a boy that was loafing on the steps of the bank as if he were one of the stockholders, and began to ask him questions about the town, feeding him dimes at intervals. By and by, the young lady came out, looking royally unconscious of the young man with the suitcase, and went her way. Isn't that young lady Polly Simpson? Asked Jimmy with a
Special guile, sneakiness.
with specious guile. No, said the boy. She's Annabelle Adams. Her pa owns this bank. Why'd you come to Elmore for? Is that a gold watch chain? I'm going to get a bulldog. Got any more dimes? Jimmy went to the Planters Hotel, registered as Ralph D. Spencer, and engaged a room. He leaned on the desk and declared his platform to the clerk. He said that he'd come to Elmore to look for a location to go into business. How was the shoe business now in the town? He had thought of the shoe business. Where was there an opening? The clerk was impressed by the clothes and manner of Jimmy. He himself was something of a pattern of fashion to the thinly gilded youth of Elmore, but now perceived his shortcomings. While trying to figure out Jimmy's manner of tying his four in hand, he cordially gave information. Keep going.
Pause there. when Jimmy asked, "Isn't that lady young Polly Simpson?" What's he doing when the boy's sitting there and he's like, "Isn't that Polly Simpson?" Shorty?
I'm trying to figure out what her name is.
Yeah, he's being all sneaky. The kid's like, "That's not Polly Simpson. That's Annabelle Adams." So then the kid just goes on like this little rambling thing from there. And then when it says that he's trying to figure out Jimmy's way of tying his four in hand, that's a way of tying your tie. At one time, it was your sign of how cool you were, was how you would tie your tie. And there were different tying styles. And if you get the really fancy tying styles, then you were considered like all uppity and like fancy. And people were like, "Woo, respect." So apparently Jimmy's way of tying his ties is fancy. Chloe.
Okay, I can make a connection.
Good. You have to hold that. Because I want to make sure we try to get to the story, so I'm trying to be fast and go first. Michaela, keep going from there.
Okay. Yes, there ought to be. Can I sit?
Yeah, when you're done.
Yes, there ought to be a good opening in the shoe line. There wasn't an exclusive shoe store in place. The dry goods and general stores handled them. Business in all lines was fairly good. Hoped Mr. Spencer would decide to locate in Elmore. He would find it a pleasant town to live in, and the people were very sociable. Mr. Spencer thought he would stop in the few town. He could stop over in a town a few days and look over the situation. The clerk needn't call the boy. He would carry up his suitcase himself. It was rather heavy.
Because what's in the suitcase?
Thanks.
Yeah, burglary tools.
Mr. Ralph Spencer, the phoenix that arose from Jimmy Valentine's ashes left by flame of the sudden and alternative attack of love, remained in Elmore and prospered. He opened a shoe store and secured a good run of trade. Socially, he was also a success and made many friends, and he accomplished the wish of his heart. He met his Annabelle Adams and became more and more captivated by her.
So does he rob the bank?
No.
What's he do instead?
Life
Falls in love. And that would be a good story to end right there, but that's not how our story ends. It becomes much more fun. That's just the beginning of things. I'm going to take over from here because I want to make sure we get done. Because if we get halfway through it and we don't get to end the story, you'll be really mad at me because it's like a cliffhanger. At the end of a year, the situation of Mr. Ralph Spencer was this. He had won the respect of the community. His shoe store was flourishing, and he and Annabelle were engaged to be married in 2 weeks. Mr. Adams, the typical plodding country banker, approved of Spencer. Annabelle's pride in him almost equaled her affection. She was as much at home in the family of Mr. Adams, he was as much at home in the family of Mr. Adams and that of Annabelle's married sister as if he were already a member. One day, Jimmy sat down in his room and wrote this letter, which he mailed to the safe address of one of his old friends in St. Louis. Dear old pal, I want you to be at Sullivan's place in Little Rock next Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. I want you to wind up some little matters for me. And also, I want to make you a present of my kits of tools. Now, I know you'll be glad to get them. You couldn't duplicate the lot for $1,000. Say, Billy, I've quit the old business a year ago. I've got a nice store. I'm making an honest living, and I'm going to marry the finest girl on earth 2 weeks from now. It's the only life, Billy, the straight one. I wouldn't touch $1 of another man's money now for $1 million. After I get married, I'm going to sell out and go west. There won't be so much danger of having old scores brought up against me. I tell you, Billy, she's an angel. She believes in me, and I wouldn't do another crooked thing for the whole world. Be sure to be at Sully's, for I must see you. I'll bring along the tools with me. Your old friend, Jimmy. Real quick, my one question on that when he says he wants to go out west because there's not going to be as much danger of having old scores brought up. What's he referring to on that one, Pencil?
When he cracked the safes and stuff.
Yeah. He doesn't want to have things like that because he's still a wanted man. He doesn't want to have people still come track him down because that would be bad. So that's why he wants to go out west. On the Monday night, after Jimmy wrote this letter, Ben Price jogged and who's Ben Price? Jogged unobtrusively into Elmore in a livery buggy. Means that little chariot with car, horse thing. He lounged about town in his quiet way until he found out what he wanted to know. From the drugstore across the street, from Spencer's shoe store, he got a good look at Ralph D. Spencer. "Want to marry the banker's daughter, are you, Jimmy?" said Ben to himself softly. Well, I don't know. The next morning, Jimmy took breakfast at the Adamses. He was going to Little Rock that day to order his wedding suit and buy something nice for Annabelle. That would be the first time he left town since he came to Elmore. It had been more than a year now since those last professional jobs, and he thought he could safely venture out. After breakfast, quite a family party went downtown together. Mr. Adams, Annabelle, Jimmy, Annabelle's married sister with her 2 little girls aged 5 and 9. They came by the hotel where Jimmy still boarded and ran up to his room and brought along his suitcase. Then they went to the bank. And what's in his suitcase?
Tools.
What's he going to do with the tools?
Give
Give
them
it to
away.
somebody.
And now who's in town?
Or the Ralph. No, Ben Price.
Ben Price. Then they went on to the bank. There stood Jimmy's horse and buggy and Dolph Gibson, who was going to drive him over to the railroad station. This is the second page, which you don't have, which I'm not going to give to you yet to leave in the class. They're over there on my desk. Because I am going to read them without you getting a chance to read them and jump all the way to the end. All of them went inside the high carved oak railings into the banking room, Jimmy included, for Mr. Adams' future son-in-law was welcome anywhere. The clerks were pleased to be greeted by the good-looking, agreeable young man who was going to marry Miss Annabelle. Jimmy set his suitcase down. Annabelle, whose heart was bubbling with happiness and lively youth, put on Jimmy's hat and picked up the suitcase. "Wouldn't I make a nice drummer?" said Annabelle. He means a door-to-door salesman. "My, Ralph, how heavy it is. Feels like it's full of gold bricks." "A lot of nickel-plated shoehorns in there," said Jimmy coolly. "And I'm going to return. Thought I'd save express charges by taking them up myself. Getting awfully economical in my age." The Elmore Bank had just put in a new safe and vault. Mr. Adams was very proud of it and insisted on an inspection by everyone. The vault was a small one, but it had a new patented door. It fastened with 3 solid steel bolts thrown simultaneously with a single handle, and had a time lock. Mr. Adams beamingly explained its workings to Mr. Spencer, who showed a courteous but not too intelligent interest. The 2 children, May and Agatha, were delighted by the shining metal and funny clock and knobs. While they were thus engaged, Ben Price sauntered in, leaned on his elbow, looking casually inside between the railings. He told the teller that he didn't want anything. He was just waiting for a man he knew. Suddenly there was a scream or two from the women, and a commotion. Unperceived by the elders, May, the 9-year-old girl, in a spirit of play, had shut Agatha in the vault. She had then shot the bolt, and turned the knob of the combination as she had seen Mr. Adams do. The old banker sprang to the handle and tugged at it for a moment. "The door! It can't be opened!" he groaned. "The clock hasn't been wound, nor the combination even set." Agatha's mother screamed again, hysterically. "Hush! Hush!" said Mr. Adams, raising his trembling hand. "All be quiet for a moment. Agatha!" he called out as loudly as he could. "Listen to me!" During the following silence, they could just hear the faint sound of the child wildly shrieking in the dark vault in a panic of terror. "My precious darling!" wailed the mother. "She'll die of fright! Open the door! Break it! Open it! Can't you men do something?" There isn't a man nearer than Little Rock who can open that door," said Mr. Adams in a shaky voice. "My God, Spencer, what should we do? That child, she can't stand it long in there. There isn't enough air. Besides, she'll go into convulsions from fright." Agatha's mother, frantic now, beat the door of the vault with her hands. Somebody wildly suggested dynamite. Annabelle turned to Jimmy, her large eyes full of anguish, but not yet despairing. To a woman, nothing seems quite impossible to the powers of the man she worships. "Can't you do something, Ralph? Try, won't you?" He looked at her with a queer, soft smile on his lips and in his keen eyes. "Annabelle, give me that rose you're wearing, will you?" Hardly believing that she heard him right, she unpinned the bud from the bosom of her dress and placed it in his hand. Jimmy stuffed the rose into his vest pocket, threw off his coat, and pulled up his shirt sleeves. With that act, Ralph D. Spencer passed away, and Jimmy Valentine took his place. "Get away from the door, all of you," he commanded shortly. He set his suitcase on the table and opened it out flat. From that time on, he seemed to be unconscious of the presence of anyone else. He laid out the shining, queer implements swiftly and orderly, whistling softly to himself, as he always did when at work. In a deep silence, and immovable, the others watched him as if under a spell. In a minute, Jimmy's pet drill was biting smoothly into the steel door. In 10 minutes, breaking his own burglarious record, he threw back the bolts and opened the door. Agatha, almost collapsed, but safe, was gathered into her mother's arms. Jimmy Valentine put on his coat and walked outside the railings towards the front door. As he went, he thought he heard a faraway voice, one that he once knew, call out, "Ralph?" But he never hesitated. At the door, a big man stood somewhat in his way. "Hello, Ben," said Jimmy, still with his strange smile. "Got around at last, have you? Well, let's go. I don't know that makes much difference now." And then Ben Price acted rather strangely. "I guess you're mistaken, Mr. Spencer," he said. "I don't believe I recognize you. Your buggy's waiting, isn't it?" And Ben Price turned and strolled down the street.
What happened?
I don't understand.